pictures is, I don't have a word or
Recording in progress.
Good evening, and welcome to the October 1st, 2025 Yarmouth Planning Board meeting. I am Joanne Crowley, the chair. The public is welcome to attend our meetings in person or by alternative public access provided on the Town of Yarmouth website. Our meetings are generally held on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, but sometimes we have extra ones when needed. I'd like to begin by taking roll call. Susan Britta, Deirdre Gaquin.
Here.
Will Rubenstein.
I'm here.
Peter Slovak.
Here.
Ken Smith.
Here.
And Joanne Crowley present. Seeing that we have a quorum present, I can now call the meeting to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first item on our agenda this evening is our local comprehensive plan public hearing. I'd just like to review for the members of the public who are here and those who might join us remotely the protocol for this. First of all, I'm going to open the meeting officially, then I read the public hearing notice that appeared in the newspaper. Sorry to drag you all through that. And then Kathy will have a presentation from us, for us, a PowerPoint presentation. Kathy will then summarize some of the written comments we've received. Then we will open it up to the public here, and those of you joining us remotely. There may be some updates Kathy needs to provide to us that have occurred since our last meeting, and she'll bring those up to date for us. And then we will close the public hearing, and then the planning board will discuss any next steps for us. So let me open the public hearing, and I note that it is 5:34. And I'll read the public notice. This public notice appeared in the Cape Cod Times on September 17th and the 24th of 2025. The Yarmouth Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Wednesday, October 1st, at 5:30 p.m. in the hearing room of the Yarmouth Town Offices, 1146, Route 28, South Yarmouth, Mass. 02664, and via remote access or via telephone to receive public comment on the draft local comprehensive plan for the town of Yarmouth. The local comprehensive plan establishes a long-range vision for the town's growth and development over the next 10 years. The plan includes goals and targeted actions related to environmental resources and open space, community design and land use, transportation, coastal resiliency and sustainability, waste management, capital improvements, community character, and cultural heritage, the economy, housing, town services, and recreation. A copy of the full draft local comprehensive plan is available for review at the Planning Division, Yarmouth Town Offices, 1146 Route 28, South Yarmouth, Massachusetts 02664, during business hours, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Monday through Friday, and on the Town of Yarmouth website. Any person interested in or wishing to be heard regarding the draft local comprehensive plan should appear at the time and place designated. Written comments will be accepted and should be directed to the Planning Board, care of Kathy Williams, Town Planner, no later than September 30th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Submitted by Joanne Crowley, Planning Board Chair. So with that, we can open up the hearing this evening on the local comprehensive plan. And Kathy has a presentation for us on its contents, a summary, and I'd like to turn the meeting over to her at this point.
Thank you, Joanne, and welcome everybody. We are in the final stretches. We are at the final draft local comprehensive plan, and we're in good stead, I think, to proceed to voting on it at special town meeting on November 17th. I see some familiar faces. We've had a lot of public input that's been taken in order to develop this plan, as well as we received some additional comments during our August public review period that we have also incorporated into the local comprehensive plan. I apologize, it's 150 pages long, and I will try to summarize that in a reasonable period of time. So what's in the LCP and what's the purpose of it? It's really our 10-year master plan. What do we want to do in the next 10 years? What's important to our community, and how do we want to start investing and spending our resources? So the LCP is broken down into these 8 different chapters. The first one's the community vision and growth policy, which I'll go over. The different community goals, which is kind of the overarching goals for a bunch of different elements within the plan. Chapter 3 is our biggest section. You'll notice it has a lot of great information in it. Each element has a bunch of information on existing conditions and some trends and some data. It also identifies the key issues and needs within our community and talks about recent actions that the town and other entities have undertaken to try and address some of these issues. And then that leads right into Chapter 4, which is our targeted action plan. So knowing what the key issues and needs are helps us to identify what we need to do in the future in order to address those issues. Chapter 5 is our housing section. We have a recently completed 2024 housing production plan, and that section heavily relies on that. And then Chapter 6 is our capital infrastructure and facilities. So we're going to need to make some infrastructure improvements to allow for this managed growth that we're talking about in the local comprehensive plan. Chapter 7 goes over all the different public engagement opportunities that we've done, kind of starting with our visioning plan back in 2021. And then the real heart of the document is Chapter 8, which is the implementation matrix. That identifies the different actions, who's responsible for making it happen, what's the time frame for making it happen, and then what are some of the potential funding sources to help make that action happen. So as I mentioned, we're looking to get an adopted plan at fall special town meeting, and we would be seeking this winter certification from the Cape Cod Commission. There's different benefits for getting certification with the Cape Cod Commission, and our plan has been developed to be consistent with the regional policy plan for Cape Cod as well. So our vision, we really want a community that's a great place to live, work, play, and learn. We want to have an attractive and an affordable and inclusive community. We want to be sure that we have a clean and healthy and sustainable environment. It's important to all of us. We want a strong and diverse economy so people can actually afford to live here. We want to have a bunch of great places where we can recreate and leisure, and then we're looking for educational excellence as well. So the next part is the growth policy. Where do we want to do this managed growth within our community, and what do we want to protect within our community? So this helps identify the areas within town where we are interested in seeing economic growth. Obviously, we were interested in doing it through places where we have the municipal sewers. We certainly don't want to be aggravating our environmental impact, our environmental resource issues. We also want to make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing, so we care about what it looks like and the design standards. We're looking for mixed use or commercial development along Route 28 and redeveloping some of our hotel properties along South Shore Drive. And then there's other different segments along Route 28 which we're kind of concentrating on as being good places for future growth and redevelopment. Other areas we're looking at is the potential enhancing our village centers on Route 6A through the Village Center improvement project that we're working on right now. And also the town-owned former Matakees Middle School property offers a great deal of opportunity to address a bunch of different community needs, and that's a project that's currently ongoing right now to identify those potential uses to present to the community. And we want to do this all while we're protecting our historical and cultural resources. We want to be sure that we're doing it resiliently and with sustainability. We really want to be sure we're stewarding all of our valuable water and environmental resources. One of the things with the regional policy plan is being consistent with that plan, and they have identified these 8 place types up here. So in our growth policy, we're kind of required to reference those in the different areas where we think we're going to be doing development. So we're doing a lot of suburban commercial development along Route 28, and then we have some activity centers along in the South Yarmouth Village, and then of course our historical and natural areas. Again, being consistent with the regional policy plan, the Cape Cod Commission's plan has been broken down into 3 different systems. There's natural systems, built systems, and community systems. We're following the same general idea. We've moved some stuff around to fit Yarmouth a little bit better. Our natural systems are water resources, wetlands and wildlife and plant habitat, our open space, but we inserted coastal resiliency here. Our built systems deal with community design and land use, so a lot of zoning, how we develop our community, transportation, climate mitigation, waste management, and capital facilities and infrastructure. And then our community systems are really our community character, our cultural heritage, our economy, our housing, and then the last 2 items, town services and recreation, aren't required to be in a local comprehensive plan, but they really rose to the top as being key issues for our community during the visioning project, so we've incorporated that into it. So I'm going to get right into the actual meat of it, which is the action items that we talked about for all these different elements. We have and it also identifies the goal, and then I'll go over very briefly, I'll try, the action items with regard to these different elements. So the wastewater management, we have 6 different actions that really revolve around continuing with the implementation of our 8-phase comprehensive wastewater management plan. We're obviously looking to complete phase 1, which is under construction right now, which is really focusing on our Route 28 and our South Shore commercial corridors, as well as the treatment facility. We also need to look at other places where we can get rid of the treated water, the effluent discharge locations, and get those permitted through Mass DEP. Again, this is an 8-phase process. We've got phase 1 down, but what are some of the other phases? What does phase 2 look like? And try to identify the best locations for phase 2. We were able to secure $207 million for phase 1, but we need to start looking at other funding sources for other phases of the project. We want to keep up with our septic treatment facility. We're all going to be on, a lot of us will be on septic for a long time. We want to make sure that people are properly pumping their septic tanks to keep the environment sound. And we want to continue supporting our Water Resource Advisory Committee's mission, which is really about all water quality, not just estuaries, marine, but freshwater and drinking water as well. For water supply, we have 6 actions to develop a sustainable supply of high-quality drinking water. So we really need to stay on top of new regulations and contaminants. I think we've all heard of PFAS. Recently, we've had to, in the last couple of years, had to get treatment for the first time for PFAS within our drinking water resources. So we want to stay on top of that. We want to make sure that we're making incremental improvements to our water infrastructure, developing that capital plan that we need, and then also looking at assessing our water rates in order to be able to fund that. We want to continue with water conservation. We've all been impacted with the droughts that we've been having recently, which seem to be more frequently. We also want to update our water master plan, and especially looking at our future water demands and how making sure that we can have sufficient supply for that. And then working regionally for some type of mitigation solutions and redundancies to help out each other. Fresh and saltwater resources, there's 8 actions to preserve, protect, and restore the quality and functions of them. There are 3 different tidal restoration projects that we're looking at. These are really places where the tidal flow has been restricted and it's really impacting the water quality upstream. We're working with the Friends of Bass River for one on North Dennis Road and also Weir Road. We're also working with them on Kroll Pond, where there's a constricting pipe that goes underneath Smuggler's Beach, and what we can do in order to open that up a little bit and get some more flushing there. We're also working on a Long Pond study to look at the water quality there and come up with some recommendations and future implementation of those. The Cape Cod Commission has done a really good job with their freshwater initiative, and they've identified a bunch of different strategies that communities can undertake to protect and improve their water quality of their freshwater ponds. So we really need to dive into those and look at those and see which ones we can implement and which would be suitable for the town of Yarmouth. We want to continue working with and supporting the Hyannis PFAS Working Group, looking at PFAS contamination from the airport and the former Barnstable Fire Training Facility. We want to continue with our stormwater projects and different best management practices that we can do for treatment. We want to continue with our recreational shellfish and fisheries. Obviously, shellfish also help with water quality as well. Continue with our fertilizer education program. Fertilizer can have a lot of nitrogen in it, so we want to be sure that people are applying it properly and at the time that they're applying it, and also where they're applying it. And then you see this last action item in gray. Anything that's in gray is an actual regulatory or zoning change that we're considering. And so we're also looking at maybe supplementing the stormwater regulations to require best management practices for pretreatment. So wetland resources, we have 6 actions related to protecting, preserving, and restoring the quality and natural functions of coastal wetlands and their buffers. We're working with Friends of Bass River on a wetland restoration project on the upper reaches of Bass River as part of their tidal restoration project. We're also, staff is supporting and participating in the Cape Cod Hospital Bayview Bogs project that's being done. We're also going to be looking at wetland regulations and bylaws, taking into consideration sea level rise and different mapping opportunities that are out there now. We also want to look at purchasing or conservation restrictions to allow for salt marsh and wetland migration. As sea levels rise, salt marshes need to migrate. We also want to continue with public education on the regulations. We're finding that a lot of times people are inadvertently damaging environmental resources because they're not fully understanding what the resources are and the regulations around them. We also want to be sure people know what are some of the best management practices that they as homeowners can also undertake. And then also considering potential for banning herbicides and pesticides near waterways and wetland resources. So with plant and wildlife habitat, we have 6 actions to protect, preserve, and restore those habitats and maintain species diversity. One of them is completing the Chasebrook Park project, which has an extensive amount of invasive species management as well as native plant restoration, and then also looking at other town-owned properties for invasive species management. We have some projects that are currently ongoing. Also doing annual vernal pool identification. Those are the breeding habitats for a lot of invertebrates, and also making sure that they get certified. And those are on town-owned properties only. Continuing with our Great Shore Bird Monitoring and Protection Program. We all love the plovers and making sure that they're okay. And continuing with our prescribed burn program, which is really controlled burns, which help provide additional types of habitat for wildlife. And then looking at our potential zoning changes with regard to land clearing. Open space has 6 action items to manage, protect, and expand those open spaces and conservation areas. Maintenance, maintenance, maintenance. That's one of the things that we are looking at, and maybe adopt a park or adopt an area program that we could get people in our community to participate in that. We're also looking at approved signage, whether it's interpretive signage or wayfinding signage or signage to nearby activities or businesses that people might be interested in open space. Also looking for purchasing of properties or conservation restrictions for open space, and also to protect a bunch of the different environmental resources that we have. Continuing with the printing of our conservation trail maps, which tell people where to safely park, as well as staying on the trails. Enforcing legal use of our conservation areas, so when people encroach or there's illegal dumping, we want to make sure that we're addressing that. And then looking at tax delinquent properties and see whether we might want to purchase those or take those over, not purchase them, but take them over as open space. Coastal resiliency has 9 actions to prevent, minimize impacts from storms and flooding and erosion and sea level rise on basically everything, the environment, property, infrastructure, economy, and all the people. We are currently working on updating our hazard mitigation plan, and I hope to have that out for public review in the next month, so that'll be another thing you guys can review and participate in. We also want to be sure that we're maintaining our eligibility in a bunch of different grant programs. MVP has provided us with a great municipal vulnerability program. It's provided us with a great deal of funding. We want to be sure that we stay up to speed on those. Packet landing resiliency project happening at the marina to raise the marina, the wharfs, and the lower level of the parking lot. That's where all of our harbor master boats are, and it's also our commercial marina. Looking at low-lying roads and culverts, we're going to be completing an assessment of low-lying roads and egress for south of Route 28. There's a lot of low-lying roads there. How are people going to get in and out when we start dealing with sea level rise, and whether we need to start expanding and increasing the size of some of our culverts. Also looking at a future Lewis Bay study for accretion and erosion and shoaling in the bay. Want to continue with our dredging program. We have a great 10-year dredging permit for Lewis Bay, Parkers River, and the lower part of Bass River, but we're also working with the town of Dennis to get a 10-year dredging permit for the northern part of the upper reaches of the Bass River, which I don't believe has ever been dredged before. We also want to be sure that we're including resilient design within all the town projects that we're working on. We're also looking for mechanism for coastal infrastructure funding. We have a lot of revetment walls and things like that, and there's not a lot of grants available for those types of programs. And the Cape Cod Commission has a model floodplain overlay bylaw, so we'll investigate that and see whether we're interested in incorporating any of that into our zoning and other regulatory documents. So moving on to the built systems, community design and land use. As I mentioned, it's mostly related to zoning and subdivision regulations. So we have 5 actions to promote the creation of village areas. We want to have walkable neighborhoods. We want to be sure that we're having growth in the right places that has adequate infrastructure and minimizing adverse impacts to the environment. So we're looking at revising our design standards. Some of them are not clear enough, and others are too specific, and it makes it difficult to not only for developers to implement, but also for us to regulate. We have the Matakees utilization project that's going on, and depending on the uses that the community decides they want to see there, we may need to be looking at some zoning amendments related to that. We also want to take a very comprehensive look at our zoning bylaw and see what we can do to simplify it, rewrite it, to provide that managed growth in the right locations. And also looking at updating our growth incentive zone, which is related to projects, thresholds for projects that need to go to the Cape Cod Commission for developments of regional impact. That can be very timely, time-consuming, and costly endeavors. So there's some parcels in town that currently have elevated thresholds. And then we want to update our subdivision regulations. We don't have a lot of land left for subdivisions, but we need to update those regulations. The next item in built systems is related to transportation and connectivity, and we have 15 actions items there to maintain a safe and accessible and efficient network. Again, it's a Route 6A Village Center, and completing that project. It's currently in the pre-25% design phase with Mass DOT. We also want to be sure that we're coordinating with the Mass DOT Bass River Bridge and Four Corner project, which is going to be starting next month. And then also the other Mass DOT Route 28 corridor projects. The one that's being done, and I think it's about 75% design from Parkers River all the way into Barnstable to Yarmouth Road, and that includes bike lanes, and it also includes a shared use pathway on the south side. So that's going to improve the transportation connectivity along that section of Route 28. We do want to improve bike and pedestrian connectivity. We have a lot of gaps in our sidewalks and connectivity. We also want to look at becoming a complete streets community, which allows another potential funding source that we could tap into. The Cape Cod Commission is working on a Route 6A vision study for the entire corridor to see if they can work with the communities and kind of identify some standard improvements that might be able to be done throughout the various sections of Route 6A. We're also looking at enhancing our coordination with the Cape Cod Gateway Airport as they continue implementing of their master plan, including additional solar speed signs and trailers to help remind people to slow down. Speed was another issue that had been identified. Looking at other permanent bus shelter locations, maybe at Shaw's, so people aren't standing out in the rain waiting for regional transit. We want to be sure that we're supporting the canal bridges replacement, because if we don't replace them, we're essentially going to become an island, and we don't want that to happen. We also want to investigate seasonal trolley along Route 28 with the with the regional transit and the local chamber and the hotels, and see whether that's something that would make some sense. And then again, evaluate whether we want to have some traffic information and mitigation required as within our zoning bylaw for larger projects. Climate mitigation and energy, we have 8 actions that we're really looking to promote renewable energy initiatives, energy conservation and efficiencies to reduce consumption, and then reduce the production of greenhouse gases. So we actually had an action item to use a grant that we received to hire a municipal energy manager, but we've actually hired this person. So they're actually on the books right now. And then also looking at the potential of developing a climate action plan to identify different ways of reducing greenhouse gases. Continuing to participate in the Green Communities projects, supporting the Energy Committee. And this is something that came, a modification that came out of the comments from the August review period. We included their updating of their 5-year vision plan, which includes objectives and strategies, as well as performance standards for energy resiliency. We want to look at green infrastructure within our municipal projects, that, solar, level 3 charging stations, geothermal, and all these things that we can do to minimize greenhouse gas emissions, but also trying to do it in a cost-effective way. Encouraging our community to participate, and our residents to participate in Mass Save and Cape Save with the home evaluations and the different energy programs that can be done, and also looking at whether we want to be converting to battery-operated leaf blowers and mowers. I think that might also help reduce some of the chronic noise we all experience in our neighborhoods during certain times of the year. And then also looking at zoning amendments to address ground-mounted solar and then canopy solar over parking lot areas. Waste management, there's 7 actions to promote a sustainable solid waste management system in Yarmouth and the region. The plastic foods, container, and utensils, that was a bylaw that was passed, and the plastic advisory committee, I can't remember what their name is, but they're working on modifications to that bylaw to make it more implementable. It was a little too strict, and different businesses were having difficulty actually being able to accommodate it. We want to be sure that we're continuing to support the Recycling and Solid Waste Advisory Committee. We need to start looking at some regional waste options, not just for solid waste, which is our garbage or composting, but also sludge waste from things like our treatment facility coming up. And we also want to start looking at different ways that we can take a waste product like an organic and turn it into energy or fuel opportunities. Again, that might be something we can look at regionally. Looking at having a license plate reader at the transfer station, make that a little bit easier for all of us to use the transfer station. Continuing with our annual community cleanup day. And one of the ways of reducing the amount of waste that we have is by giving things to other people, donating them, or repairing things that we have. So identifying a list of places that will take different types of donations and places where you might be able to get some things repaired might be helpful for the community. And again, the chapter on the capital infrastructure and facilities, this really is major, large-scale, key capital facilities improvements that we are looking at that are really meant for anticipated future growth and development. And all of these things that are mentioned in the capital improvement or infrastructure and facilities are also incorporated into action items throughout the different elements within the local comprehensive plan. Community systems, community character and cultural heritage. Looking at 8 actions to protect, preserve our significant cultural, historic, and archaeological resources and foster a strong sense of our community. We're looking at having a historic Yarmouth initiative, really promoting all of what Yarmouth has to offer as a tourism thing with regard to all of our historic sites, as well as including more interpretive signage on different historic elements. Completion of the Revolutionary War Monument that's being planned for the playground on Route 6A, evaluating a town common across the street here at Simpkins School, looking at ways of incorporating public art on town properties, completion of an archaeological survey that the Historical Commission received CPA funding for, also looking at the Baxter Grist Mill building in West Yarmouth. They did a lot of great work on the property and the dam itself, but the building needs some additional work. And then supporting all the great arts and educational opportunities that we have from so many different places, whether it's the Cultural Center or the Historic Society of Old Yarmouth. The economy has the largest number of action items. There's 16, and we're really looking to promote a thriving year-round economy with a lot of different types of jobs. We also want to continue to support our hospitality and tourism industry, which is important. We really want to see what we can do to become more business-friendly to development, but also being sure that we're taking into consideration all of those environmental and infrastructure concerns. So the first action item is related to what can we do, and we're working on it now, we're learning as we go along, what can we do to help the businesses during the construction of the sewer, the construction improvements when Mass DOT comes through, what can we do to help them? Developing conducting a market study to identify what type of uses and markets do we want to draw to the town of Yarmouth, and what might we need to do from a zoning standpoint to attract those. We're also looking at promoting mixed use. We want to maintain our commercial corridor, but we also know that we do need residential housing within the town. Matakees provides a lot of opportunities for many different elements within the plan, but it also provides an opportunity for economic development as they move forward. They're also looking at indoor and outdoor recreation facility. Again, that may play into Matakees as a potential option for economic development there. Looking at expanding, enhancing our marketing, looking to add a little bit more horsepower for economic development by adding more staff to that area. Want to be sure that we're investigating different incentive programs that the state might have with regard to economic development and tapping into those. Consider developing a community development corporation or redevelopment authority, which could be much more nimble than the town can be if a particular property comes up for sale. Want to be sure that we have competitive high-speed internet throughout our community. We want to support the Community and Economic Development Committee, which is currently kind of being reconstituted. And then the Cape Cod Commission also did a comprehensive economic development strategies plan, and just going through that and seeing what strategies we might be able to take out of that and incorporate here into the town of Yarmouth. We need to look at sewer allocation regulations. The build-out in the comprehensive wastewater management plan allowed for 725,000 gallons per day of additional new growth within our community, and how do we want that to be distributed and allocated throughout the community? Obviously, the largest section of it is in our commercial corridors, but identifying that so that we can make sure that we're monitoring who's being developed, what's the wastewater flow, because we ultimately have a cap on that. We also want to understand that those Mass DOT projects are going to be enhancing our streetscape, so having those types of public investment really help foster some private investment around there. We're looking at simplifying the entertainment licensing, and then also looking at temporary seasonal workforce housing. We have some measures in our bylaw right now, but we need to get a better handle on if there's any additional need and whether there's going to be any additional modifications that we need to make within the zoning bylaw to accommodate that. Housing, there's 8 actions to promote, preserve the production of an adequate supply of safe year-round home ownership as well as rental housing for people of all wide range of incomes. So the number one action there is implementing the housing production plan. There's a bunch of different strategies that have been incorporated into that. So we made the plan, let's work that plan. We also want to be sure that we maintain the funding to the Affordable Housing Trust and support for the Community Housing Committee. Affordable Housing Trust has money, so they typically are able to help actually generate and provide funding for housing projects. We want to complete the short-term rental study that's currently being done by UMass Donahue to kind of see whether our short-term rentals impacting our seasonal rental, our seasonal housing issues, and whether we need to make any modifications to our zoning bylaw and/or general bylaws in order to address those issues. Again, housing is another opportunity for Mattakees as we're looking at that. The 2024 Affordable Homes Act had a lot of different funding that came along with it, so investigating that funding and see where we might be able to tap into some of that for Yarmouth. Continue with the collaborations that we do with a lot of developers to kind of help them through the permitting process here in the town of Yarmouth and make the best projects that we can. And then also continuing with housing counseling, home repairs, and rental assistance. Town services, as I mentioned, this isn't mandatory for local comprehensive plan, but we did incorporate that in there with regard to the government, public safety, health, the library, senior services, and education and learning. So we really want to improve our communications between everyone, as well as the interaction between the community and the government, as well as public participation in events like this evening and town meeting. We're also looking at different ways of attracting and retaining town employees. As businesses in town are having difficulty finding employees, so is the municipalities. Looking at the potential for a residential tax exemption, which gives lower taxes for people who are actual residents and live here year-round versus people who might be second homeowners or commercial investors. Want to look at municipal facilities capital plans, develop those plans, as well as maintenance plans, because we want to be sure that we're not waiting too long on our maintenance, so it becomes a capital project. Fire has a great strategic plan. Let them work that plan. The police are working on updating their strategic plan, and both police and fire are working on a comprehensive emergency management plan update. They're also working towards regional dispatch, continuing with that. They work very hard to leverage a bunch of different grants and fundings for training, equipment, and personnel, but those types of funding sources are drying up, or they're only temporary. And then we also need to look at fire station feasibility studies for Fire Station Number 1 and Fire Station, which is on Old Main Street, and Fire Station 2, which is on Route 6A. Taking a look at the emergency EMT services and ambulance receipts. How can we maybe balance that better to get paid for the services that we are providing to our community? Continuing with our human services grants. We only have like $60,000 a year that we do in human services grants, but we might want to be able to expand those. And continuing with the Yarmouth Substance Awareness Committee. The library building, they're looking at a new library, continuing with the design and development of that and building support for that through the community, and then looking at potential identifying funding sources for that. And then the library also has a strategic plan and continuing with working that particular plan. Senior center facilities, they need some improvements at their particular facilities, but they also continuing with a lot of the great services that they have, intergenerational, technology classes, taxes, all kinds of services that they provide. Also promoting senior fitness and the age-friendly community team. And then dealing with our education, DY school system, working with them to develop their capital plan, working with them earlier in our budget season, and also periodically looking at our intermunicipal agreement, as well as also supporting the Cape Cod Tech, which is a great school. And then I'm sure as many of you have heard that we have been accepted into the Massachusetts School Building Association, and we are going to be looking at a feasibility study next year with regard to the Emmy Small Elementary School. And then recreation, there's 9 actions to really promote year-round active recreational opportunities. Let's just complete a lot of our great ongoing projects. We're almost complete with the Parkers River Landing at 669 Route 28. That should be completed this fall and includes a kayak launch, a beautiful boardwalk, as well as areas for public art and a big central event space area for periodic events. Complete the field study that the Recreation Commission is doing right now to identify what fields we need in town and where we might be able to provide them. Again, recreation at Mattakees is an opportunity that's being investigated. Really looking at that year-round recreation. Since Mattakees school has closed, the Recreation Department has heavily used that gym and really exploded with all the great programming for all ages that they've been able to do that with access to an indoor gym. evaluating different places for pickleball, taking into consideration that we want to be cognizant of the potential noise issues. Complete the ways to water assessment and improvements for town ways to water, being sure that we're doing handicap accessibility with regard to our recreation facilities, and then, of course, expanding programs for all ages. And I think the Recreation Department is actually doing a fabulous job with that, especially in the last year. And then just continuing with publicity and communication so people are fully aware of all of the great programs that we have going on. So when I mentioned that the implementation matrix is the heart of the document, this just gives you an example of, on the left there, it states the goal for that particular element, and then all the different actions, but then the time frame, responsible parties, and then the funding sources. And this is something that the planning board is going to be evaluating on an annual basis and providing an update to the select board and also to the Cape Cod Commission, because it doesn't make any sense to have this sit on a shelf. We need to be sure that we're seeing what progress we continue to make in town. Community engagement, there's been an extensive amount of community engagement. Like I said, I've seen some familiar faces here who've been involved throughout our process, and it's very much appreciated. This can't happen without you guys and the community. We also did a lot of stakeholder interviews with town staff, different boards and committees who have their areas of expertise. We met with the DY Regional School District, civic associations, business owners, and chambers. So we had a lot of great information from all these different communities, committees within town. And so what's our next steps? We're going to finish our public hearing tonight, but then on October 15th, the planning board will discuss any comments that they received tonight and whether they need any changes need to be made based on that, and then to vote to recommend it to the select board. And then we're going to meet with them on October 21st to update them, and again, hopefully gain approval at the November 17th special town meeting, and then sometime this winter that we would continue to seek Cape Cod Commission certification.
Thank you, Kathy.
Wow. Madam Chair, I move that Kathy get a glass of water. And I'd be happy to provide it.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much, Kathy. That was great. Did you want to do written comments now?
Yeah, I think that would be good. We didn't get very many written comments. We did get something from Christine Marzigliano with regard to concerns about maintenance of our passive parks, and she specifically mentioned Chasebrook Park, and she really hopes that to preserve the natural beauty of our open spaces, we need to assure that the funds necessary to preserve these passive parks are included in each year's DPW budget. Very good point. Received a comment from John Gullett. He had provided originally comments about undergrounding utilities, and I directed him to the location where we did add an action item, where we would look at undergrounding utilities as part of road projects on a project-by-project basis. We heard from Tom Holbus. His comment was just on the length of the plan. He thought that 10 years might not be sufficient, but that's pretty standard for a local comprehensive plan. I can't imagine we could look into the crystal ball more than 10 years. We'll probably be changing things as we go along, and that's why you need those annual reviews to see what needs to be modified. I did get another email correspondence with DJ Zerbel regarding a cell tower at Kings Way, and I have reached out to Jeff Colby, the DPW director, who's going to reach out to our different cell carriers that we work with the cell tower antennas on top of our water tanks, to see whether they could reach out to Kingsway in order to see if anyone might be interested in a cell tower at Kingsway, because that is an area that does have a gap, for sure. And I also included, there was some recent article in the Cape Cod Chronicle about our legislators reaching out to the different cell phone companies saying we have a lot of gaps and we need some help with these gaps. And then I just included in for your reference that I responded to the Energy Committee. They provided us a lovely letter, and I just wanted to be sure that they understood what changes we did make to the plan to accommodate those.
Okay, thank you, Kathy. So now I'd like to open it up to any members of the public who would like to comment or ask questions. Please step up to the microphone and identify yourself and where you live.
Hi, I'm Greg Bilazikian from 100 Wharf Lane. I have two separate questions. One on the Route 6A redevelopment. One would be, is the Cape Cod Commission report you talked about separate from the redevelopment of the business district?
Yes, we were actually ahead of them in the sense that we had a lot of those community meetings and heard a lot of that feedback that I think they're actually hearing right now. And as you know, it took us a long time to build that consensus, even just for that short section. And I think we're actually in a really good place now.
And separately, the police and fire and emergency work, will the new bridges be included in their reports? The fact that we need to get over back and forth with the new bridge, the new Sagamore bridges, will that be included in how they would access Cape Cod for any emergencies?
Our local police and
Yeah,
fire?
I mean, just if you had to move someone from Boston to a hospital for any reason, would the bridges be included in the fact we need them? We need the bridges, and bridge support from the town would be important.
Hi, my name is Jerry O'Connell. Kathy, great job. Wow. On the dispensing of treated water from the wastewater treatment facility that's to be built, is there a plan or are there ideas to use town-owned cranberry bogs for that? No?
No, not that.
Okay.
Hi.
Yep.
I serve on the.
If I may,
Oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Madam Chair, my
Yeah,
apologies.
No, that's all right. Mr. Rubenstein serves on the Water Resources Advisory Committee. He's our duty expert on this.
I should have waited for you.
That's okay.
You said duty. Anyway, I just couldn't leave it. Right now, they're contemplating using the golf courses.
Yep.
But I agree that it's a good point that there could be an opportunity.
Well, I
That's
don't
what
agree
you're
with
asking?
it. I'm not suggesting it.
Okay, are you suggesting that we should consider it at the Water Resources Advisory?
I'm asking, is it being considered?
Well, no, sorry, let me be clear. At this point, it hasn't come up because the focus has been on using golf, because golf can take hundreds of thousands of gallons, and right now our permit, unfortunately from the state of Massachusetts, is only for 375,000 gallons at the treatment plant, and our needs are well over 1 million gallons, even just in phase one. So in the short term, to bridge us between the current permit and the needs of phase one, there's going to be extensive, water opportunities at the golf courses. But I do agree that we should be exploring lots of different places, not just golf.
Okay. Architecture. As I've driven around the country as a truck driver when I did that trade, I used to see towns being remodeled and all kinds of construction, and the architecture of these towns was just blah. And we kind of see it around southeastern Massachusetts. When we remodel or go do construction on Route 28, are we considering that the architecture be similar to what Yarmouth has had over the last 200 years? I mean, I look at the West Yarmouth Library, and even this building. I mean, these buildings, they just look like Cape Cod, especially like the West Yarmouth Library, John Simpkins School, on the other side. It looks good. Are the new buildings we're going to look like the Yarmouth Commons building? Are these new stick-framed, just throw it up as cheap as you can type buildings? Because I think the architecture, people come here and they want to see Cape Cod, not the place that they had left. They want to come here to see the quaintness of the Cape.
I'm going to ask Kathy to share her knowledge of the architectural standards that we do have and how we try really hard. But our hands are tied in some cases. But go ahead, Kathy, why don't you?
I guess I would disagree a little bit with regard to Yarmouth Commons. I do think that is a very well-done building, and it was not a cheap stick building. You can tell by the thickness of the corner boards and all of the cornicing that they used, the different roof types that they've used, as well as the different modulations in the buildings. All of that is required by us, and all of that costs money, because we want to see some type of architectural interest. We don't want it to look blah either. But I think what we're looking at is things like Yarmouth Commons, not brick buildings like Lawrence McCarthy.
I know there's a cost with brick. There's also a cost with brick veneer that's a little bit less and a little more appealing. But, okay, thank you. I heard rising sea levels. If the sea levels are really rising, why was the Parkers River Bridge built at the same elevation as the old one? Swan River Bridge in Dennis is another example. I don't really buy into the big sea level rising thing, because when I was a kid, the rock I stood on down at the Seagull Beach jetty at high tide is still there. At high tide, it's not underwater. So how much are sea levels rising that we have to reconfigure a lot of things? I understand, for instance, there's a road down by Englewood Beach that goes around the corner that, that's been underwater during high tides for years. But is it that big of an issue? I mean, what are we going to spend on this sea level rising thing?
With regard to the Parkers River, that was a case where extensive amount of hydrogeologic analysis was done in order to identify what was the appropriate amount of flushing that was needed to improve water quality, but without sending too much water into the surrounding areas, because it's developed around there and you want to address that. So making too much modifications, making that opening bigger would have been a problem, but also if you raised it up a lot, it also would have expanded out the project a lot further, made it more difficult to get access to the different abutting property owners. And again, extending the project increases the cost significantly.
Fire departments and EMS services. I know the fire department, the buildings are outdated, they're growing, but if we can't find a good location to put the new fire departments, is there a way to do like a substation for EMS services? Do they actually have to be in the same building, or can we think outside the box a little bit and just maybe a substation somewhere where there could be just a EMS services? Because I understand them guys are making 300-400 calls a month sometimes. I guess they're really overworked, but do they have to be in the same spot?
I think that right now they're actually doing, the fire department's doing a study, but you need to be within a certain distance, a certain amount of time for that emergency, whether it's a fire truck or an ambulance, to get to different parts of the community. So they need to be, and generally, it's probably more cost-effective to have them together, in one particular building, because then the resources are all there for admin and that type of thing. But they can't be significantly far apart, because you need to you're basically covering a certain area, and you want to continue to cover that area.
And some of them are firefighters and EMTs. And I think many of them are firefighters and EMTs.
Yes.
Madam Chair, can I touch on that
Yes,
for a second?
Mr. Smith.
Sir, how you doing? I'm on the Capital Budget Committee of the town of Yarmouth, and the town has engaged a fire service study. It's going to start after the first of the year to where is the best place to have our stations. Is Old Main Street still the right spot? The one on Buck Island and the one in Yarmouthport. They are going to look at all that based on need and call times. So that study is starting as of January 1.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Christine Putz, and I'm on Pine Grove Road. And this LCP, I really like seeing this because I was part of the project last fall or whatever the case may be. And I think it's a great plan, and it's a great step forward. To my dismay, though, I'm seeing more and more residential property on Route 28, which is our commercial corridor. And I just keep seeing that happening over and over. And I've also read that there's 2 more properties that are proposed for residential properties, and once again, non-commercial. So that's my major concern, is that I know we need homes, I know we need residential property, but I know at one point there was discussion of mixed-use housing. And I'll take the laundromat as an example, that was going to be mixed-use housing, and all of a sudden they're trying to put up 3 buildings 3 stories high. So that's just, one example. But I just don't know where the residential piece on 28 is going to end, and put and get commercial back there, which brings in more people and more revenue for the town, as well as more tourists coming into the town to see what's available there. Thank you.
I appreciate that. I think the balance that we're trying to reach here is that there are developers who, like Habitat for Humanity, I'll give you an example, is in the process of a very small project, eight units, Kathy?
6.
6 units. And we welcome that because some of them will be affordable. They'll all be affordable. It's Habitat for Humanity, of course. The particular project you mentioned, the one that is on the lot where the old laundromat used to be, I would encourage you to watch the meeting minutes from our last planning board meeting. And you can hear loud and clear that there was not one member of this board that was happy with that proposal, not one. We knew it had come forward years ago as a mixed use, and we thought that that was a pretty good idea, and we endorsed that. But the latest proposal, hands down, we thought it was, quite frankly, awful. And getting back to Mr. O'Leary, is it O'Leary? O'Connell. I should know as a Crowley, should remember all the Irish names, I guess. But the original plan was one that was, Cape Cod-like, and the one that they resubmitted, was a box structure, and we roundly opposed it, and that process with them is continuing. But I think that looking towards functional mixed use that is aesthetically pleasant along Route 28 might be a good hybrid. We do have a lot of commercial on 28 right now, and some of those properties are empty or underused, and we would love for developers to come in and make a change there. But we're trying to, in the long-term plan, we're trying to have a vision that we want to protect that economic corridor. It's really important to us, and we're hoping that the plans that come before us will be consistent with the local comprehensive plan. Yeah, thank you.
Could I just add
Sure,
something?
sure, Kathy.
The laundromat project is being done through Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. So we don't have a lot of say in that. We do have a very strong zoning board of appeals, and they, I believe, have expressed their concerns as well when they had opened their public hearing on September 25th.
That's
and they've
right.
actually continued it to November 13th. So I would recommend continuing to follow that and participate in that process.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, my name's Martha Powers. I live in West Yarmouth. This is a very impressive, massive amount of information I can't get my head around, but I appreciate all the work you all
Neither can we.
put in. Yeah. So I just have a question I'm not even sure this is the group to answer it, but that strip mall next to the West Yarmouth Post Office, which is such a horror and has been for so many years, is there nothing the town can do about that, or what's happening there? There's a big sign about this.
That's Great Island Plaza. I think we all know what she's talking about. That, I think, it was unfortunate because there was a pretty nice plan there it was all commercial except for one residential unit, and they were going to just really improve. And this is the Cape Cod architecture. It's an interesting shaped building. It's kind of cute, and they were just going to fix that. But it all happened during COVID, and then when construction prices went up, and the project kind of fell apart. So they had it permitted and everything, and it kind of fell apart. I've heard that there's some rumors, some people are somewhat interested in it, but that's the whole idea of having a community development corporation, where that might be something where, could the town purchase something like that, and then go out with an RFP and try and get the type of development that we want for it. But if it's privately owned, we only have so
The
much.
town can't force them to do something or give them a time frame or something?
We can only deal with, if it was like when it's vacant or something, they have to board it up or fence it off. Like that, I think that building in the back is all fenced off. Those are the types of things that we can do.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, well, again, I want to thank you all for.
Anybody online?
Thank you, Will.
You can make the call for online folks to raise their hands, Madam Chair.
Anyone who's visiting remotely have a question or a comment? I got no hands.
If that changes, Madam Chair, I'll let you know.
Okay, no hands.
No virtual hands.
Yeah, there we go. Any comments from the planning board related to this that we would want to share with Kathy in terms of any adjustments or changes that we see? I think we've gone through this as many times as we can. Kathy's got a couple
I just want to mention one thing, Madam Chair,
minor
if I could.
adjustments. Yep.
If this is the same presentation you're going to make to the select board or a very similar one, some of these slides, well, I'm only going to mention that because you're a human being, Kathy, I'm just pointing it out. You missed one. It's slide number 12, under housing. There's 8 actions, but only 7 listed, and the one that you missed
I
was
might have combined
was actually one that Ms. Powers just brought up. It was, I think it's worth mentioning, it's in the plan, is to identify blighted properties and gray fields.
It is.
So
You're right.
we're certainly right there with you. And that particular property, Madam Chair, as you know, has been on our radar for many years, but we do have some limitations, unfortunately, about what we can physically or literally do about it. But I just wanted to mention it for your slide presentation in case you do it
I
again.
hope to not give this again. I don't think the select board want to hear it again.
Well, I don't know, but I just thought you'd want to know.
No, I appreciate that,
For-
because you're
in case-
absolutely right. There is, the
Do it again.
Affordable Housing Trust has money, so they could put out an RFP and with an emphasis on underutilized and blighted and grayfield or brownfield projects to fix those up. So, very good point, Will.
Thank you, Will.
Madam Chair, can I follow up?
Yeah,
I-
Mr.
I had
Slovak.
asked- I had asked this question earlier about the time frame in the back with some of the action plan.
The matrix?
In the back. So, just for me, I suppose, I mean, understanding the time frame, is that to the completion time frame, or is that when we should begin this particular action?
It's really hard to develop the time frame on a lot of these, other than things that we know that are absolutely happening right now. Like, we know that wastewater is going on, it's going to be completed in 2028, so we know that's 0 to 3 years. But a lot of them are like, like future phases, 3 to 10 years. We're going to start with the future phases in 3 years. But I'm trying to give sometimes a range where you can either start sometime within that range, but the idea is that you would finish within that same time period. So I don't know how to get more specific with any real accuracy.
And the time frame, I just want to understand what it means, though, time frame. Is that the completion time frame or start time frame?
It's meant to be like the start to completion.
Sounds like both.
Right, so when something says 2 to 3 years, we should be finished within 2 to 3 years.
We should start in 2 years and be finished in 3 years,
Okay.
I think.
I mean, the only way,
you're looking
if I
at.
could piggyback on this, Madam Chair, the only way to make that more clear, and I know it's a little late in
Am
the
I the only
game,
one that it's
is
not
to make
clear to?
another,
I mean,
well,
I don't
no,
know
I'm
if
saying,
I'm-
no, but I'm not disagreeing with you, is to make another column. Is to make one that says start.
I just want to know how we're going to be held accountable to this. You know, this is 10 years. I just want to know, we have responsibilities. PB is in here quite a bit. So I want us to be able to develop goals so that we can follow them and stay on track, so we can say we completed it within time frame. Or reposition the priorities if something's 1 to 3, 2, 3 to 5.
Yeah.
I just want to understand what
Like
it is that.
rewrite the zoning bylaw. That probably is not something that's going to start for 2 years, and it's going to probably take us to the 2 to 5 year, the 3 years to finish.
So maybe it should just be a completion time frame. I don't know.
I think I need to give the range for the commission. I mean, if you want to clarify that the timeframes are kind of like estimated start, estimated completion.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the way I understood it back when we first were talking about that is the time frame was determined based on when we were going to start that particular action item. Doesn't mean that as soon as this plan's implemented, every action item is going to be done in 1 to 3 years. It's impossible. It was, the way I understood it, was when that particular action item is started, it will be 1 to 3 years, 1 to 2 years, whatever that particular thing is.
Well, and for instance, in transportation and connectivity on page 139, Kathy does designate some of the actions have design and then construction timeframes. So within the timeframe column, you are actually charting out some beginning and some ending timeframes. It's just a few of them have a 2 to 7.
Right.
And I think Peter's just trying to clarify, how does that translate when it's just 2 to 7 versus design, 1 to 2, construction, 3 to 5?
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, there's,
I think I'd like to make a suggestion in terms of, I think this is important that we understand you know, what are the expectations here? But this is our first go-round in terms of ever using an implementation matrix, I believe, sort of.
Open Space and Rec Plan has one.
What?
The Open Space and Rec Plan has
Okay.
one.
But I mean, for our local comprehensive plan.
Oh, yes, yes.
So this is kind of new ground for us, and I think our key responsibility in 2026 will be to that meeting or meetings that we have to look at every single action item and where they are. And at that point, I think maybe we can refine what those timetables are and whether things are moving forward or not. I mean, this was put together in a very concise period of time with the best, with I think, the best thinking that we could put together in terms of a time frame. I don't think we're being locked in here in terms of the time frame, but I do think it is a timetable of expectations, and that's important. Because these are deliverables not just for the planning board, but this is deliverables for the water department and DPW and the fire department. And they have to be comfortable with them as well. But at this point, I think I'd be reluctant, other than to maybe clarify what we mean by time frame in the document, because revisiting what these timeframes are at this point, I think would be very difficult.
Right, I mean, if it said completion timeframe.
Yeah.
That would be a little more clear, something 3 to 5 or 1 to 3, I would understand that
Yeah.
within the next 1 to 3 years, it would be completed. Versus 1 to 5, we got to look a couple extra years.
Right. But as I understand it, Kathy, this time frame, as we had talked early on when we were putting this together, is both, that it would start and be completed. The start time and completion would occur within that time frame.
I didn't get it that way.
Okay.
To be
Yeah.
candid with you, I didn't get it that the start time, it's not about, to me, it's not about the completion time. I think that was within the range set on each category. I got it that the start time was gonna start when that project started, not the day this is implemented. Okay, this is good to go, it's got its blessing from the commission, and now we get the clock is ticking. I didn't get it that way.
Okay.
I think things like the completing of Phase 1, it's ongoing, and we're going to be completed in 3 years. You know, identifying effluent discharge locations, Phase 1, it's ongoing, and we're going to need to be done in 3 years. Future phases are 3 plus 10 years, because it's a 40-year plan. Locations for future phases, it's ongoing right now, and it should be completed in 2 years. So I think it's kind of like trying to give you a start, and when, for some things, you might be able to be completed. But as you get further out in some of these things, I mean, that's an easy one, because we know what's happening. But when you get into some of these other ones, I don't know when we're going to get to necessarily some of these, not just us, but other people, like considering banning herbicides. They might start looking at that in 2 years, they might start looking at that in 4 years. It's a general time frame to kind of say, this is what we're concentrating immediately, this is a little bit later, and then this is even further out. These are all in flux. They will change, they will depend on staffing, workload, whether, and a lot of other things, like whether all of a sudden, like COVID would have thrown this into the waste bin. So it's very flexible, and I think that's why we need to look at it on an annual basis with input from all of our partners, all of these responsible partners, because it's not you guys doing all this stuff, it's everybody in the town doing all this stuff, and kind of getting a better handle on what their timeframes might be for these things.
So what do we want to say about time frame then?
I don't want to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have an explanation from Kathy. I just understand Kathy's expectations, and because she's the one who put together the time frame. So I just
Yeah,
want to.
okay.
you know.
All right, good enough. Thank you. Any other comments? I'd like to, I think I need to close the public hearing at this point, and I'll note the time as 6:35.
Did you want me to talk about the changes that, while, or in deliberations? We can do it either way.
We could do it now, after the closing.
The only thing that I was talking about is, we have all of those great stakeholder changes to this. We have all those great stakeholder interview summaries. Let's put those in the appendices so people can see all of that and have access to it, because we have all the other information. And then I just think we need to fine tune the action for the municipal energy manager, because it says hire that person. They've been hired, so we can just, it's a minor modification, but it's like, as we keep moving forward, things are actually getting accomplished, and we just kind of need to reflect that a little bit in the plan.
So what Kathy and I talked about was that kind of minor update in terms of the energy manager. We could incorporate into a final draft that would be October 2025, and that we could vote on it at our next meeting on the 15th as the final draft. And that gives us enough time because we're meeting with the select board on the 21st.
Right.
Kathy, would you mind putting the final slide back up, just in case, if folks are leaving, if they're trying to think about where we go from here?
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
Madam Chair.
at the 15th, we would have a vote. And then that would be what we move along to the select board. Okay?
Yeah, you need to vote to recommend the article.
Right, and that would happen at the 15th.
Yep.
Great, okay.
So now you can.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
none of the people online
Okay.
raised their virtual
Thank you.
hand, so.
Okay.
there you go.
So, moving on to our second item on the agenda. Do we have any?
The hearing.
Oh, we have a vote, of course. May I have a motion to close the public hearing regarding the local comprehensive plan?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Really great job.
Thank you.
Anybody who can answer it, and I apologize for taking your time. I'm trying to obviously do something that we talked about, and what would you guys suggest I go to?
Are you interested in developing it yourself, or?
No,
Okay.
I don't want to say I want to stop it, but I would like to say we're trying to look at other alternatives. I mean, I know it's 40B.
Okay, so you're talking about the laundromat property, and I'm sorry, what's the question?
Where could we go from here as far as who do I need to speak to? Because I know the planning board has done their.
Yeah, you would need to go to the zoning board of
I
appeals
did that.
and continue to provide
For
written
the
comments.
next meeting, too.
Can I will, believe me, don't worry about that. But as far as, if I go to like Julian C. or anybody at the state, because I know you guys can only do what you can do.
They would have to change Mass General Law, Chapter 40B, and they're not going to do that before this project gets approved.
But as an elected official and your representatives, I'm
can let
sure
them
they
know.
would be open to hearing, of course, your concerns about the project itself. And I'm sure they will defer to the local zoning board in terms of how it gets adjudicated. But for sure, I mean, just like anything, they probably want to know how you feel about it, and they won't know unless you tell them.
And the zoning board of appeals could deny it.
Well,
Or they could approve it, or they could approve it with very specific conditions. So that's another important thing. If there's certain things that would, in your mind, would help mitigate your concerns, be very vocal about that. And what are the conditions that you might want to put in there? I think that's what the planning board was trying to do. That's what was done through site plan review and the community housing committee and those types of things.
right, but I also know 40B. well, the
It's
state
harder with
laws are
40B.
very Right,
Yeah.
that is correct. So I'm trying to mitigate you guys, as far as the town can only do so much. Or
Right.
basically, your hands
Right.
are tied. Let's
Right.
put it that way. And I understand all that, and the zoning board and all that.
They
So
have a
I'm just
lot
trying
of,
to-
they're the people who might be able to help.
Yeah, trying to see if he'll withdraw his application. I'm praying every day.
Okay, thank you.
Neighbors
Thanks for
two to
coming.
come.
I called him.
Yes.
She said she was on Pine Grove Road. That's the road.
Yes.
Right, sorry, it just struck me.
She lives
I
right,
was
probably
like-
right next door.
Yeah, and we'll get to that later in the meeting when we have time for other comments.
Okay, so next up on the agenda are zoning amendment articles for the special town meeting. At our last meeting, in our packages this evening, Kathy has put together for Article number 1, draft number 1, the retail sale of live lobsters, we voted to recommend that. Article number 2, draft number 2, and it's highlighted in the draft that we have dated August 28th. we took a preliminary vote to recommend. At our last meeting, we did this to give the Select Board kind of an understanding of where the board stands as of last meeting, but also to note that the Planning Board, in our discussion, wanted to continue considering extending the exception to year-round for those properties where a boat cannot physically be located to the side rear of the building. So I'd like to suggest that we review the article as written, draft number 2, formally with the Select Board next Tuesday. And then at our October 15th meeting, we can finalize the article and formally vote to recommend or not. So that's kind of the process I was thinking. Kathy?
Did you want to get input from this? I think the way it was we weren't sure about the time taking
Yep.
that out. I
Yep.
mean, that was obviously a lot of the public comment was take that out, of maybe presenting this to the Select Board and hearing what they had to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
And then voting on it on the 15th.
Yeah,
Okay,
to
I'm
get,
sorry
not-
if I'm-
as another member of the public, hearing what they have to say.
Yes.
Good.
That's all.
Madam Chair?
Yes? Mr.
I wasn't
Slaughter.
at the meeting, but I
Yeah.
did watch it, and I am not in favor of taking it out. So
Okay.
I think having the protection of,
Hi, I just thought of something when you were speaking.
I'm sorry, can you, we're actually in the meeting. If you could just go to the mic so we can, no.
No, it's okay.
No, it
Sure.
has to do with gray water. Is that what you're gonna put on the golf course? I live on
Your name,
Turner.
your name, please?
Ellen Pitka, Turner Lane. Gray water on the golf courses, that would go into Bass River. Did you ever live with
They're
gray
not-
water?
Yeah, Madam Chair, can I
Madam Chair.
comment, can I
Go
comment
ahead.
on that?
Sure.
They're not proposing it at Bass River right now.
Yeah.
It's specifically to Bayberry.
Was what's
They're
that?
specific to Bayberry.
Yeah,
And the
okay.
gray water will have secondary treatment,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it will be to permitted allowable levels to
Yeah.
be used as water on the
Because
course.
I just was curious, because I lived in the Caribbean, and the island had a gray water system.
Proposing it
You know
for-
what they did? They pumped gray water like out, you could use it for your garden. They had the pipes, they flushed it out that way. They got
Yeah,
rid of a
no,
lot
this
of
is,
it.
this is a
So-
completely different system
Well, that was
that they're
the dump.
proposing.
That was a dump anyway, right?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
Maybe it was a dump. Thanks.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
That's
Thank
okay.
you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your
You
comments.
could use it for, what do they call that? Water, not potable water, when they
No.
use the gray water. Potable is drinking.
right.
But that's what they did. They ran it through areas and condo developments and stuff. And you used it to wash your feet.
Sure.
Well,
You could use it for gardening and stuff.
Thanks for your comment.
Thank you.
thank you.
I'm glad I got that answer.
There you go. All right.
So we left this, Kathy, we'll do the presentation next week to the board, and then listen to what they have to say, and then come back
Our discussion here.
and we will vote on what the language is and vote to recommend or not recommend. Okay.
May not be unanimous.
It may not.
Yeah.
And that is certainly okay. Matikes project.
The Matakees their next meeting is on October 9th at 6 PM in the conference room A. We're going to be looking at some additional bubble diagrams. When I say bubble diagrams, they're just really general blobs, kind of showing where different uses might be able to go on the site based on all of the land use, the survey, the public meeting workshop that we had. And then we also are going to review the building reuse report that was done by Catalyst, who's a sub to BSC Group. They have some additional modifications and updates to some of the numbers, and they were looking at, redoing just the building to get it to the bare bones, maybe if it's offices, maybe if you just did the, updated the gym and the auditorium. What if you built a new rec center that addressed what the recreation department was looking at? And then what would it cost to reuse the Matakees building for housing, and then what would it cost to build new? Just to get an idea of what's the financial implication of trying to reutilize this building for some of these particular uses and whether it makes any sense or not. It's going to be very expensive to rehabilitate that building. And I think that's what they found when they were doing the intermediate school.
Yeah, that makes no financial sense.
Yeah.
It didn't make financial sense in 2017 when we were thinking about what to do, and it will not make financial sense in insert end date here, whatever date that is.
And then they're also going to start seeing if they can't come up with some findings and preliminary recommendations, because with regard to like the building and that type of thing, because then they're going to be going to the select board to present their update on November 4th. And they'll be going through all of that material with the select board. Once they identify, I think we have 5 or 6 bubble diagrams now. Hopefully they may narrow that down, but ultimately we're going to take 3 concepts and develop them more into design development concepts, which showed a little bit more like roads and the buildings individually versus just the blobs. But we really need input from the select board before we can put a lot of time and effort in that. And then we're going to have, obviously, a public engagement process in January where people can look at that.
Are those documents on the website, Kathy? Bubble diagrams?
The bubble diagrams are not on the website yet because we were still kind of working on them. They're always they're in the packet, though. They will be in the packet. They had some preliminary ones at previous meetings, so I try to include the packet material with the agenda on the Agenda Center. And then once they come up with the ones that they're comfortable with, the MUC really hasn't made any decisions on what they want to do. Once they do that, and hopefully they can do it on the 9th, then we can start posting some stuff on the website. We do have the summary of the workshop meeting, that BSC group, that's on the website now too.
Okay.
We'll put the Catalyst report on there once it's finalized.
Next on our agenda, may I have a motion to accept the minutes of September 17th?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Kathy. Those minutes were great, by the way.
One small correction.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
No, it's just Pine Grove Road instead of Pine Grove Street on
Oh.
page 4.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you.
What page?
Pine Grove Road.
Page 4.
Thank you.
Parking paragraph.
That helps me. So should we need to redo it as amended?
I don't think for that little correction.
Okay. All right.
I forgot the discussion part.
Meeting gods will forgive us.
Thank you.
Scribner's error. Don't we get that?
Next up are committee updates. Who would like to start?
We haven't had any more housing meetings, so
Okay.
nothing
All right.
to add.
So just capital budget real quick. We're continuing our outreach to the departments. As a matter of fact, I met with IT just prior to our meeting today. We hope to have all of our outreach meetings done this week. And then the next 4 or 5 weeks, it's just full steam ahead with actual interviews and recommendations and all that. So our goal truly is to get this wrapped up as soon as possible. It's a lot.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
the RAC committee meets Monday, but I just wanted to remind folks that if they're interested in not just the current work that's being done, which we know is comprehensive, that I expect, if not at this meeting, the November meeting, that there'll start to be conversations about where Phase 2 is going to go. I'm not sure that's great English, but you know what I mean. So for those that are interested in that, I recommend that they tune in on Zoom. It's the first Monday of every month at 4 p.m. And if they want to be in person, it's at the DPW building in the break room. The muster room, that sounds way better. And then tangentially, the school building committee finally met. The reason I bring it up is because there seems to be a push for a special town meeting article on funding the feasibility study that needs to happen at that location for ME Small. And there's not a lot of time to make that all happen, as you know, with the deadlines that we've been working on for months and months and months. But I just wanted to put that in the context of the special town meeting just got more special, besides our own work here on the planning board.
They're just thinking of that now? They must have known.
Oh, no, I'm just saying, but the school building committee hadn't had a formal meeting until last week. And let's just say there's work to be done, Madam Chair. And later, I have another question about a meeting conflict, just in terms of, the Finance Committee seems to meet on Wednesday nights, certain times of the month when we meet. And I was wondering, at some point, could we take a step, could we fly up to 30,000 feet? And just sort of wondering why that is. But that's a conversation for another time.
Okay.
I don't understand the question.
Well, for instance, there's going to be for instance,
glad you're
I'll
not the
explain it
only
a different way. There's going to be a really important conversation on the 15th between the Finance Committee and the school committee about about everything having to do, because of the short time frame of trying to get this article on the warrant. But there's not an agreement right now in terms of some of the underlying data being used to support a push for a feasibility study and to what we're actually voting on and how much we're asking the town to vote on. The issue is, and this is somewhat selfish, but also for people who are interested in how our town government works, if the Finance Committee and the Planning Board meet at the same time, and I understand we're limited because of space, Madam Chair, in terms of where and when we can meet, and there's only so many days in the week, and we can't meet on Friday nights, even though that is a day of the week. It just seems to be a strange conflict, but I'm assuming that's been well vetted through previous planning boards and finance committees as to how these committees meet and when they meet.
This room is very limited. It's used every other day of the week, but Wednesdays.
Right, so that
And
means,
Conference room A, also, it gets very busy, and,
Okay.
and that, I think that's why
okay,
they meet there. They do meet at 6, and sometimes, when I've had to go to FinCom and I've had a
I
meeting
remember.
here, I've asked them to put me on later on the agenda, so, because they start at 6 and we start at 5:30. So maybe,
and I apologize for taking up the meeting with
maybe
this
we can
question.
go super fast.
Just struck me that those were two pretty important conversations we're going to be having here while they're having it upstairs. But I guess that's the power of the recorded meeting, Madam Chair.
Will, the
Or
backup?
cloning, one or the other.
Madam Chair, I have a question for Will. Did you happen to attend this past Tuesday's meeting?
That was the very last thing I was going to bring up. There was a meeting in this very room with Jeff Colby and the DPW and the new Diggett Construction about Contract 5, Madam Chair. And there was a very big turnout of many business owners and a few homeowners, more business owners than homeowners, and of course, members of the RAC as well. And there are lots of concerns, specifically having to do with, getting around, basically. That is the key issue. And it remains to be seen, despite all of the really good effort by the town, and it has been tremendous, if the contractor will also be as good, and the police and the flagging will be as good as the town is doing on its own, and how those things mesh together, Madam Chair. And as we know, this is going west now from Parker's River towards Higgins Kroll.
Right.
That is going to happen, and it starts, I believe, within a week or two, not to mention the paving going east to help wrap up the contracts that have already been completed. So I just think more vigilance by everybody is going to be needed, and more patience, which I know is not the easiest thing for all of us to provide.
Patients of the business owners, from ones
that's
that I've
the hardest
spoken
thing.
with,
Yes.
and residents is starting to wear. So, just as a comment.
If I could provide one little spark of good news, the weather forecast has been outstanding,
Yeah.
and it looks like this entire week, and I think into next week, and that will mean the paving will get to really move, even though it only moves within
400 feet a day.
400 feet a day. But if there's any good news you could hold on to, is every day there's good weather, it means every day the paving gets closer to being done, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
How about the Cranberry Bog Station? Any?
There was an executive session at the last select board meeting. There was. But the smoke has not come out of the chimney yet as to the location. And I can promise you, we'll be asking on Monday at the RAC meeting. And as you can imagine, my counterparts on the Conservation Commission and the Finance Committee and all those nice people, every single month, we ask the same question. Every single month, the answer is, we're in negotiations. And that has been well over 6 months, Madam Chair. And the timelines are starting to get sticky. Because that is the last contract that needs to be completed to finish phase 1, and that's all tied up in our on our bonds and all the SRF and all of it, right? Right, Ken?
Yeah. Stiff
so-
and digs sound easier than this.
Yeah, so, it is unclear. We keep waiting for answers. We keep asking questions. We don't have answers. Maybe at the next select board meeting, Madam Chair, also, they might have an answer that they haven't provided to the RAC yet.
I have one committee on CPC. We had a meeting today, we had a meeting last Wednesday, and we're scheduled to continue to have them on Wednesdays. But we did have a project come in for the purchase of land, open space, up off of 6A, next to Taylor Bray Farm on Nottingham Way, Nottingham Drive. And we've been asked to accelerate that and have that for special town meeting and not wait for annual town meeting. We had the Conservation Commission is the sponsor of this. So we voted on it. We're going to put it on it'll be an article for the special town meeting. It's a piece of property now that abuts Taylor Bray. It's not used, and the owner is interested in selling it, and is anxious to sell it. It would be, I think what we learned was that it could be 3 buildable lots. Yeah, that's, yeah, I think in the notes that Brittany's sent with us, up to maybe 3 buildable lots.
It would need to get special permit
Yeah.
relief for that.
Yeah, okay.
This has been talked about for a couple of years, too,
Yeah,
I think,
yeah.
right? I remember Karen Green asked me about that a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So that's one. And then the other projects that we've received applications for include some annual ones. The Harwich Ecumenical Council, we provide funding for them annually or every other year with regard to helping homeowners with home repairs. They're no-interest loans that they then repay over time. So we've got a request from them. Habitat for Humanity, the Wood Road project, we have a request for that, the 6 affordable single-family homes. The Hands of Hope is also a group that provides financial assistance when people are getting evicted and need to secure long-term leases. That group sometimes will provide first and last rent. And that's an annual, Hands of Hope is an annual, and that's a regional, that's 3 or 4 towns are part of that. We have the annual request from the Yarmouth Affordable Housing Trust. They've requested $200,000 this year. We also have a request with regard to the Packet Landing, landing, the sea level rise, the parking lot. We have a request in for that. That's a function of a coastal zone management grant. So they may be repaying us if in fact they get the grant, but they need to have, some seed money in. So that's one in there. I mentioned Nottingham Drive. And then Friends of Bass River have moved on to Phase 2 with regard to Run Pond. And that's the design, permitting, and data collection, primarily related to the parking lot, the beach parking lot. And so we'll hear from them on that. So that's what I have. Any other board member items?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to mention, you mentioned it earlier, it is definitely worth watching the ZBA hearing, the ZBA meeting in its entirety, and I say that not just for us, but for the public at large. I just wanted to acknowledge our friends on the zoning board who really did take the comments and the work by folks on this committee as well as the subcommittees that they're sourced out to, and are been incredibly vigilant with the initial presentation and asked a lot of really pointed questions and had a lot of reasonable concerns that echo ours, Madam Chair. And it didn't even get to the point where there was public comment because they basically said, please go back to not the drawing board, but please go back and
Reevaluate.
Get it together. Yes, reevaluate sounds much nicer, Ken. And I would encourage folks to be present, whether it's in person or online, on November 13th, which happens to be my birthday, so I'll just celebrate by watching that, Madam Chair, but probably not live in the room. But I just think it's an example of how I think the system's supposed to work between our two bodies, and it feels nice to see that it's working well. And it'll be interesting to see what the outcome is. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I watched it also and had the same reaction, and I was so pleased that they really took very seriously our comments and the Housing Committee comments, and it really, I was very pleased. And they told them, you shouldn't bring it if it's not done. And they were very good about clarifying what needs to be done,
Not to mention the straight-up legality of the different number of units.
right?
Was right in front of them, just like it was in front of us, Madam Chair, as well as the expiration letter, expiring within 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
So I'll be fascinated to see what happens, as well as it echoes the concern of some of the abutters that we even heard here tonight.
I mean, did they get a new eligibility letter?
It's unclear.
It's unclear.
I think they did.
And it's unclear that they even realized that they had to get one, and the Zoning Board of Appeals basically said, why don't you have one?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's kind of what they
I'll
said,
watch
and
it.
their
I
attorney
will.
was, let's just say, doing a little dance, and we'll see how it turns out.
Okay. Any other board member items? Kathy, correspondence or staff updates for us?
Megan Eldridge, the new Community Development Director, started today. I think she's going to be a really good fit, so it's exciting. It's good to have additional horsepower.
Now
Other bodies.
You can downshift to third gear, from fourth gear.
I don't know, what's the maximum gear? But yeah, no, that's exciting, so we're happy to see that.
Are they waiting for her to sort of put the CEDC back together?
I'm assuming that's going to be part of her tasks as well, yep.
But that's different than the Assistant Town Administrator position. Did that get voted on? It's just the.
She's starting in November,
November one.
beginning of
So
November.
these two very big positions are being filled.
Yep.
Wonderful news.
Upcoming meetings, October 7th, we're going to have our review with the Select Board. October 15th is our regular meeting. October 21st, we'll be meeting with the Select Board again with regard to the local comprehensive plan and perhaps the zoning article as well. And then November 5th is our regular, and then we have special town meeting on the 17th. So we've got a busy calendar ahead of us. And I think that's all I have. So may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you all.